Welcome to Mike's Virtual Garage. This is the first episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in. In today's episode, this will be very introductory, so we'll go over myself, what I bring to the channel, what you'll learn from me, what vehicles I've owned in the past, and where you can see the channel going in the future. Let's get to it. So who am I? My name is Mike. Some might call me Mikey, AS4K, or even Audi Sport 4000, depending on what kind of automotive form you come from. I've been an avid automotive enthusiast for around 22 years, mainly specializing in older Audis from the vintage 1980s era. I've always enjoyed cars, RC cars, matchbox cars. From as long as I can remember, I loved anything with four wheels and a motor. I also have a deep passion for the people. I think that's what sets me apart from other enthusiasts. But for me, it's really getting to know the people behind the cars, what makes them enjoy what they do. And that kind of brought me to start this channel because every one of us is unique, has a unique story. Along with that story comes a unique car. So I thought, what better time to start a channel than now with everything going on in the world. It's a great time for us all to become one and share our stories. So that's one reason why I started this channel, in hopes to learn more about you who are tuning into my channel, and also sharing my love for old German cars. So why am I here, and what can you expect from my channel? I'm here to provide insight to 1980s Audis, their quirks, what things you should look for in potentially purchasing one, do-it-yourself videos, tutorials. Also, we're going to get into some detailing, which is a passion of mine. Also, we'll talk about some potential pitfalls you might get into when getting into one of these cars. Also, some more in-depth things to look for when possibly trying to purchase one. And is this the right car for you? There are a lot of cars out there, German-wise, and sometimes an older Audi of a certain vintage might be something you want to look into. You will also see my project car. It's a 1986 Audi 4000 CS Quattro commemorative design car. We'll be going through this extensively as there are still projects to tie up. So those videos will be on the channel here in the next month or two. I do want to get a lot of stuff sorted out before the Carlisle show in August, so there will be a handful of videos coming out between now and then. You'll see things with fuel system overhaul, fuel pump filters, mounts and so forth, transmission mounts up front, new hardware, hopefully get the AC taken care of and fixed. We'll walk you through that. And also, we'll kind of go over the car as a whole. I'll introduce you guys to the car. We'll go over what's been done to it, some other specifications and so forth. So stay tuned for that in a future video. We will also look at what kind of tools you should have in your toolbox if you're an older Audi enthusiast like myself. We'll dive into specific factory type tools and also ones that you can pick up locally that will be a huge benefit to when you tackle certain projects on your older Audi. What cars have I owned? I've owned a plethora of Audis ranging from 1985 to 2004. I'll go through these in somewhat of a chronological order with what memory I have some script in front of me, so bear with me. So let's get started. First Audi I ever owned was a 1985 4000S front wheel drive automatic in Zermatt silver over a blue velour cloth. It was handed down to me by a family member and was my main mode of transportation for about 4 to 5 years. Served me well. It was a great car to learn on. I did my first oil changes on this thing and learned a lot about the Audi brand. And of course, it is the car that started my downward spiral to where I am today, having owned so many of these cars. So I give testament to my family who have owned these type of cars in the past, and also for their support as I go forward. Next car was a 1984 4000S limited edition. This is in sapphire over blue velour interior. I actually found this car at a local Volkswagen dealership for sale, used. I was still pretty young, so my father helped me acquire this one. It only had about 90,000 miles on it when I picked it up, and thankfully we were able to verify that with talking to the previous owner on the phone before we bought it. Didn't own this for too long. It was a nice car. But it was sold to fund the next project. Third Audi I owned was my first Quattro. It was a 1986 4000 CS Quattro commemorative design car. This one was Alpine white over red leather interior. I picked this up, I believe sometime in 2003 from a indie Audi individual out of Indianapolis. And like I said, my first Quattro, didn't know a lot about even driving a manual at that point, so that was fun. But it ended up being a project car of mine throughout the years, to where I did my first turbo swap, which is a 10-valve turbo, into that. Subsequently sold in 2008, and is still somewhere floating around, I think, the Vermont area to this day. Next Audi is a 1984 4000S limited edition, this time in ocean blue. This was a tip from a Audi enthusiast in South Bend, Indiana, and he mentioned that a family had it, could potentially be looking for a new home, but they were kind of specific on the buyer. So I love these kind of things when they come up. People who know what they have and they've taken good care of it. So I was very anxious and excited to get a look at this one, and bring it home, I think January 2009, I believe. That sounds about right. Owned it for a few years, did some maintenance on it. It was a fantastic car. It was a 5-speed car, and amazing paint, really good interior, pretty original. Thankfully, this one's still alive and well somewhere in the heart of the country. So that was a good one to own. I'm happy that's in good hands now. Next one we got is a 1988 Audi 90 Quattro. This is in Tornado Red and purchased from an enthusiast out of Pennsylvania not long after I sold the blue car. This one is my first venture out of the B2 chassis. This is a B3, a very early B3 with 2-piece uprights in the rear. It was a great car. I owned this for quite a while. Did some maintenance on it myself. It was my daily driver for about 2 or 3 years. And then I sold it to a very loving enthusiast out east. So this one's still alive and well, being very well maintained and on the road. Next, we come into the first Audi that took me out of anything from the 80s or 90s. I picked up a 2004 all-road 2.7T from a very loving family in Pittsburgh. They had a fleet of Audis, they still do, and I kind of tossed around the idea of wanting a wagon, and they said, well, we have Razzie if you're ever interested. And they gave their cars, fun names for depending on the color of the car. So Razzie ended up becoming mine. Thankfully, I did have an individual who was close, helped with some service before I picked it up, and also gave it a tune. But unfortunately, I didn't have this in too long. Had a bit of service done on it. I drove it for a bit, and then I actually sold this car to a couple in Michigan, maybe about a year after I had it. So sad. This one is a car that kind of got away. Wish I would have kept it, but all roads do have a special piece in my heart. So, but I'm glad this one's still living on. Next car is actually the car that's in my garage you see behind me. It's my 1986 4000 CS Quattro commemorative design. This one was actually trucked from Oregon to the Midwest, where I have it now. I was tipped off by a friend of mine, Driggs, who you may have heard in other videos. Amazing individual out of Oregon. Fantastic resource for the B2 chassis and community. He knew I was looking for a graphite over red leather car and found one that was for sale. So first time not really driving a car and picking it up. I trusted the judgment and had the car shipped back. That was probably about 5 years ago, and it's been a driver for me. It's gone through some transformation in terms of suspension and some major service from the engine. But we'll go over more of that in detail in a separate episode. But that is the next car on my list that I've owned. Next on the list is an A4 2.8 Quattro. I picked this up not too long after I got the gray 4000 from a enthusiast in Virginia, looking for a different daily driver, and he had an A4 he was unloading, looking for a buyer. So first venture into the B5 world. It was extremely clean, under 100,000 miles, very nice. It was a manual car. Had that trucked here, picked it up, did some light service on it as well, and owned this for a bit, daily drove it for a bit. And then it kind of got interesting as I got to think about what I wanted to do after the fact, but some things kind of transpired to where there could have been a trade coming for a different car. So that kind of leads me to the next car that I picked up, which was my old 1991 a 220 valve wagon. This is Lago Blue, and a friend of mine, Audi enthusiast in Georgia, had this and asked me, would you ever want to consider, selling the A4? I've got the 200 wagon. I always liked the bigger bottle Audis. They've always been very appealing to me, and plus with the 200s, they're pretty rare. So seeing one in Lago Blue with the platinum interior, this one's very well maintained, a lot of service records with it. So it was tough to say no, and end up doing a nice trade, kind of in between where we live. So I picked up the 200 and drove that for probably a couple years, did some good maintenance on it, drove it to Carlisle a few times. Very amazing car to own and drive. This is one I wish I would not have sold, but it is now living life in sunny California after I sold on BAT a couple years back. So that is a collection of Audis I've owned. I've also owned, a small handful of Volkswagens, 2008 Rabbit, 2010 GTI, and a 2018 GTI. Like I said, I'm an automotive enthusiast by trade. I love the cars, I love the people, but I think the older cars are a better suit for me. I know how to work on them, and there's so much information around how to fix everything. So the 4000 is here to stay for quite a while. We'll go into that more in depth in the episode, like I said. But those are the cars I've owned. I look forward to sharing with you more so in the Audi what we're going to do, especially between now and Carlisle. So those are the cars I've owned so far. All right, so there you have it. That's episode 1. You heard about me, what I'm going to bring to the channel, some cars I've owned. So look for more videos coming up next month and a half. You'll see some fuel system refresh on the 4000. Transmission mounts need to be replaced. There'll be other, small things here and there that I'll bring you guys along for. And also there'll be other videos I'll be putting together in terms of, buyer guides, do-it-yourself videos, and so forth. So I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. And I'll leave you with one question. Feel free to comment below. What are some things you might want to see on the channel? I mean, I'm an open book. I'm here for the community. So anything you can think of. And also, post down below what you drive. I'm always interested to hear. I'm very active in the community, so I'll likely want to comment back, ask more questions. But aside from that, I want to thank you guys for coming along today, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.